Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for checking into Wellness Week Live. I'm your host, DJ Anthony. How's it going? All right, so you're gonna call me crazy or morbid, maybe I don't know, but I'm a big fan of walking. I like walking for exercise, and typically when the weather's nice, like today was beautiful, I walk outside, and some of my walking routes, for whatever reason, just by chance, there's graveyards, so I tend to walk through them because and you're probably looking at me like, what a crazy, but I walk through them because and if you don't, and if you haven't, you should. Very, very peaceful, actually. So on my routes, sometimes there's gravesides, graveyards, and I'll walk through them, and very, very peaceful. And I don't get spooked out by that. I know some people are like, "Oh my God, I'm scared," this and that. Don't get me wrong; I'm not walking through, 2 a.m. when it's a thunderstorm. I'm not, but there are times that I do walk through the grave sites or the graveyards in my area as part of my walk, and I do so, one, because, like I said, it's very serene, very peaceful, and two, I find that you can learn a lot about life through death. And so, I don't know, for me, and I've been doing this for years, actually. I think it started, you know, I think it started when I lost a friend of mine who I went to high school with, and he had passed away. And I remember his grave is on one of my walking routes, and I said, "Wow, like I'll visit my friend. Now's a good time." And so I did that, and yeah, while walking, I also just realized, wow, it's very, very serene, very just peaceful. It has a beauty in its own way, and I through the years have kept that practice up. And so some things I have learned through walking through, you know, uh, graveyards. Number one, don't sweat the small stuff. I see the names and I pay respect to. I'm not walking through these grave yards as a joke or to be funny or to, take it lightly. But it's weird. I think that you wouldn't maybe think that you would feel peace. People are at eternal rest. There's no more hurt. There's no more pain. There's no more angst. Whatever these men and women and children, teens, elderly, whatever they were suffering through or happened to them, they're in peace. And I know I've been to, I don't even know, maybe about 30 funerals in my life. I'm 51, and I lost my one and only child. I lost my son many years back. So there's a sense of peace. The hurt and the pain is gone for all of those people, and so there's a sense of peace that I get just walking through, the grave sites, and I've lost grandparents and friends, and but there's also a sense of unity in a way. I feel like when you're walking through these grave sites, these burial grounds, everyone is there, like they're all there. There's a sense of, yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, a sense of unity that they're all, and me too, like we're all going to be there. It's not like they're different, they're dead. No, in a way, I am them, they are me, we are them, they are us. That awaits us too. And it's not a sad thing. It's, especially if you've been given the chance to live, because I have seen, just recently I saw a grave site, and it was like something like, I don't know, it was like, it was the name of a person, a male's name, but I had to do a double take because I was like, wait, what? It was like whatever it was, like, 1950 to 1953 or something. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is a baby. It's a 3-year-old buried here. And I was like, oh man, so they never got the chance to not sweat the small stuff. You know what I mean? And then 10 feet away, someone is 103. It's like, whoa, So, and everything in between. So what I've learned is, don't sweat the small stuff if you have the chance to live, past 3 years old, like, don't sweat the small stuff. And part of me also felt like walking through these grave sites, when I see the grave of a 3-year-old, it makes you question, like, God, or is there a God? And if there is a God, there's this person, whatever God you subscribe to, do they really give a shit? Because here's a 3-year-old, really? And this is not the only 3-year-old that's died in our world, and it's just like, man, that's just unfair. And then I don't know, maybe the guy or the woman who was 103, I don't know, was their life a pleasure? I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. You have to assume if you lived to 103, you had some good days, you had some bad days, and everything in between. 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, men and women, people, husbands and wives buried together, husbands and wives not buried together. I found it interesting that most people in the grave sites that I walk, they're buried in the ground, tombstone, boom. However, there are some that are, I guess they were very cocky in their life. They get the above ground, like their own like, literally their own, like, house, almost like this, big marble house, and there's one person buried in it, and it's like, holy shit, dude. Of course, one of them was an Italian. We'll go figure. But yeah, it's like, wow, like, they must have been somebody, quote unquote. At the same time, you're dead like everybody else, my man. You ain't nobody, but you're somebody, but you're nobody, but you're somebody, but you're nobody. And that's the equilibrium and the equality of death. It doesn't matter you're buried in your own little apartment, marbles, and it doesn't matter. You're not better than anybody. And so that's the other thing, I guess, I realized walking through the grave sites. I'm paying respects to people. And again, it's not a sad place, actually, oddly enough. It's a place of peace. And maybe if anybody's suffering, it's the loved ones who are alive, especially the first couple of weeks or months or years. But then even eventually the people who live on find some kind of peace. I know for me, it was when I've lost the loved ones that I had, of course, initially, right? There's shock, there's horror, there's pain. But I find, like, when I accept, hey, my son's at peace, my grandmother, my grandfather's at peace, my friend Vinny's at peace, my friend Andy's at peace, my friend John's at peace. Like, I cannot be upset anymore. I cannot be restless anymore, because they're at rest. And if they're at rest, I must be at rest. I can't dishonor them. So going through these grave sites, these beautiful manicured grounds, there's a sense of serenity and a sense of peace and a sense of unity. Like, we're all going to be there, and it's okay. We're supposed to, and we're programmed to die. You just hope you don't die at 3 years old. You know what I'm saying? You don't hope you die in a murder. You hope you don't die in a murder. You hope you don't die in a tsunami. You hope you don't die in a car crash. You hope, like probably most people at that gravesite, I would say they're mostly adults. They lived, the old statistic, most Americans live till, 79, 80. So you hope that you had some enjoyment in life, but it's funny because, at least for me, walking through the grave sites, I also question, it's like, man, if life is tough, man, like, and I'm to believe then we're going to be judged, and if we weren't quote unquote good, we're going to get fucked some more because living on earth is just so easy. Like, oh great, now there's purgatory and there's hell. I grew up Catholic, so you can tell I'm a Catholic, guilt trip. But it's just like, because life didn't fuck me enough, or the poor people that died in the tsunami, or this poor 3-year-old, or this poor 40-year-old, or poor 35-year-old, or like, dying of cancer and being ravaged by this disease, or whatever disease, MS, tuberculosis, you name it, Parkinson, whatever. Because that wasn't easy, so now we got to go and face final judgment and get fucked because you weren't completely perfect or something. You know what I mean? Like, most people are not axe murderers, newsflash, but because you didn't follow this particular religious edict or this particular religious law, now, hey, you're going to purgatory. We're going to fuck you some more, hell, because, really? Like, wow, because, life on earth wasn't easy, wasn't easy enough. It's like, really? Like, come on. So for me, I feel like I don't know what happens after we die. As I'm walking through the graveyard, I'm thinking this, I mean, yeah, you get the religious, you know, beliefs, but I don't know. I think most people, and I'll speak for myself, I don't know. Like I said, I have my religion and I go to church, but if we all knew, then why would we be crying at a funeral? I'd be like, oh my God, they're in heaven. Oh, God is good. This is great. Oh, see you in heaven. I'll see. I don't miss you. What? You're not gone. I'm gonna see you. But it's not. We don't really know. So, anyways, nothing. But so for me, I walk through the graveyard. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, is there an afterlife? I hope it's better. Or and if it's not, if it's just lights out, not the worst thing in the world. I mean, better than struggling with cancer or some disease or being tortured to death, or having your house bombed in a war. You know what I mean? It's like, at the minimum, I hope it's just lights out, and that's that. That's not the worst thing. But yeah. So as I walk through those graveyards, it's kind of funny. I say funny in an ironic way. There's beautiful flowers and the birds are chirping and there's life all around, but there's death. But there's a sense of eternal life, I guess. Peace of some sort. Maybe we all join the force, the light together and become one again. I don't know. But that's kind of what I get walking through there too. You get a sense of this unity, of this singularity, like just the oneness, and that there is no judgment. Actually, you're back at the one light. And if you believe in judgment, I think that there should be judgment only for the people who are, again, axe murderers or something. You know what I mean? Like, because most human beings are just decent people that are sinners, make mistakes, and most people deserve to be in the eternal light. That's what I think when I walk through these places, because most of these men and women are just people that had a job, had a family, tried to have some good times, pay their bills. Again, they're not starting wars and shit. Anyways, but yeah, so I got a sense of peace. You walk away thinking like, hey man, none of this fucking matters. Like, I'm just going to focus on what matters. And that's 2 or 3 things, your friends, family, fuck money, fuck status, fuck toys and things and shiny new watches and cars and shoes, whoop-de fucking vacations, whatever, dude. It comes down to just relationships. That's it. Relationships, period. That's all we got. When you really boil it down, you need your health, but I think relationships are more important than your own fucking health, because I know people who have told me, like, or have said in not so many ways, like, their loneliness was worse than when they were sick and they had friends and family around them. Being healthy and lonely was worse than being sick with friends and family. So relationships mean so much, and yeah, like, for instance, I used to volunteer at this hospital, and there was 2 patients I had to push out of to discharge, and one woman, she pushing her out of her hospital room, and she just told me, she's like, I only have a couple months to live, and as I'm pushing her to a car, but you wouldn't have, like, she was so happy. She's like, I can't wait to see my grandkids and my husband and my sister, and then she's like, I only have a few months to live. I'm like, what? Wait, what? This lady sounded like she hit the lottery. Like, she was just so happy to get out of the hospital and be with her family. She couldn't wait. And I was like, whoa, that's like, what a life lesson there. 10 minutes later, I push out somebody else, a guy who had an operation that was successful for his, I don't know what it was, but his back or his leg, whatever, or maybe might have been his heart. Anyways, cured of his problem. He's going to go on to live a long, healthy life. I'm pushing him out. He was so depressed. He goes, I'm really going to miss this place. I'm like, excuse me? I said, what? He's like, yeah, it was so nice having the nurses and doctors around. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah. I go, well, what car should I push you towards, when we discharge you? He's like, oh, I don't have anybody. He's like, I'm just going to call a taxi and just go home to my house or his apartment where I live alone. I was like, whoa. Like you would have thought he had the terminal disease. He was just so depressed. He literally, and I quote, "I'm gonna miss this place," he says. The hospital, and this is a guy that has no terminal illness or anything. He's being discharged to go live his life, and he doesn't want to live because he has nothing. He's like, yeah, I don't have anyone waiting for me. Wow. So back to the graveyard, it's just like, yeah, there's when you walk out of the graveyard or when you're in the graveyard, walking through, paying respects and just taking in the sights of the sounds of the trees and the birds, you really say, wow, life is about relationships. Period. That's it. That's everything. It's everything. It's above everything. Of course, your health's important, but that's second to relationships. So anyways, that's what I've learned walking through the graveyards when I do go through the graveyards to walk. And, and it's okay to die. We're supposed to die. I'm not saying commit suicide. I'm not saying you should want to die, but it's okay to die. We've been programmed to do so. Do you know what I'm saying? At best, we've been programmed to delete, to end at 80, 90, 100, 103, 105. You know what I mean? Like, it's in our genetic code. We're supposed to die. It's part of living. And if there was no death, then life would be very cheap. So absorb, enjoy, put your phone down for 5 seconds, be in the moment, soak it up, enjoy that friendship, enjoy that coffee with your friend, enjoy that quick conversation with an old buddy. You may never see that person again, not because they're going to die, but because maybe they're moving away or you're going to lose touch, or they're going to die. Whatever it is, everything comes to an end. And that's not a sad thing. That's a beautiful thing. That means that, wow, it's precious. It's precious. It's a diamond. Again, if everything lasted forever, it'd be plastic. But because everything in our lives are so short, relatively speaking, it's a diamond. It's to be cherished and celebrated every single day. I'm not saying, throw a wedding every day, but be aware and be just grateful. Like, wow, this was a great day. Why? I got a chance to talk to my friend, or I got a chance to go out to lunch with a friend or a family member that I really like. Like, wow, or with my dog or cat, enjoy it. Enjoy that cup of coffee. Enjoy the sun rays. Stop for a second. And that's what I learned going through the graveyard. And I hope that when we all pass, that there is an eternal light for us that waits for us, and that there can be more joy in reuniting with the people we love. That'd be great, But if not, that's why we got now. You know what I mean? So really put things in perspective. Who gives a shit? Oh, that person said this and they did that and that. They couldn't have done. They should have said. Shut the fuck up. It doesn't go. Walk through a graveyard. You'll get humbled quick. Anyways, but life is beautiful. Love it. Cherish it. Thanks everybody. I'm out of here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.